Alright people, let's start from the beginning one last time. My name is Dark Spider David, and for the past 4 months, I've been dodging Spider-Man No Way Home spoilers. I've been muting words and key phrases on Twitter. Been staying away from the Explorer tab on Instagram. I even did this.
David, you okay?
Get out!
Yeah, it's been a rough and frustrating and nerve-wracking 4 months, but I feel like I've been doing an exceptional job. And now, it's time to put it to rest. I don't know where to begin, because personally I feel like this is one of those movies where so many critics for years now have often coined this term where a movie's kind of unreviewable because of just the amount of hype there is behind it, or support, or level of fandom, and I feel like this one could be one of those. But this review is not where I'm going to be doing that. Alright, as you can tell, it's a little obvious that I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. The spider in Dark Spider David, as it points out, is for Spider-Man, and this was like an easy movie to check out, and one that was worth the excruciating, like I said, just nerve-wracking anxiety that I was going through trying to buy tickets. Well, it paid off, because here I am, finally home, finally here, to review No Way Home, the latest Spider-Man movie, part of the MCU. Of course, no spoilers, nothing that you really have to worry about here, absolutely no spoilers. That's going to be a separate video, going to be going up on Tuesday. But I figured that's a good kind of period for people to check out the movie, twice, 3 times possibly, and then we can full-blown go on into full spoiler mode. Not that, some of those are already kind of out there, but best of luck to those who are trying to avoid it now. Is Spider-Man No Way Home a good movie? See, again, there's just, it's like having a giant hamburger that looks delicious. It has like a bunch of bacon, it has all this stuff that is really good, and even inside of that burger there's some things that are good for you, like lettuce and tomatoes and maybe some other added vegetables that you wouldn't come to expect out of a gourmet burger, where they're not gonna just layer it with a bunch of cholesterol inducing stuff. And that's all fine and dandy, but at the same time, the size of it is just a little too big that you don't know how to approach the burger. That's pretty much Spider-Man No Way Home, where we're finally tackling a form of multiverse after Peter asks Doctor Strange to make everybody forget that Peter was Spider-Man after the events of Far From Home. I actually have a buddy of mine who has still not seen Far From Home, but I'm pretty certain that by now, like him and most of other people already know about that particular end credit scene, and thus then we get our consequences for No Way Home, ultimately making Mysterio kind of an impactful villain. Then chaos ensues because unfortunately Peter, and even Doctor Strange, though he doesn't like to admit it, botched a spell, and now, as they put it, they're getting visitors from different parts of the multiverse, all connected to Spider-Man. And that's where the size of that burger becomes kind of big, because then I can't really talk about anything else, because otherwise that's the kind of gourmet meal or gourmet burger that we're tackling here from a Spider-Man fan's perspective and a Marvel Cinematic Universe perspective. You can't really, this is the movie that you really are gonna have to check out and watch. If you've been on board for the MCU, you've been on board for the Spider-Man trilogy with Tom Holland, then you're gonna be on board with this, especially with what's already been talked about, what's been leaked or not leaked, or rumored or speculated. It's now that it's actually out and digestible, as tough as it is going to be to get tickets, just get them whenever you can and check out the movie, because I would say Spider-Man No Way Home, though imperfect, is ultimately a great way to, let's just say, qualm so many things that were left undone. One of the big themes about this movie without, again, going into too much, it's ultimately second chances. Second chances at various things. Not just for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but also the character as a whole. As far as just what people have been saying, what people have, criticized Tom Holland's version, whether it be the costume or the way he comes across, the way, his place in this grand universe. It's all about the second chances that are given onto him amongst other people involved, not only with this movie, but also the Far From Home, or, the Homecoming trilogy, as it's being called now. It's ultimately all connected to that central theme of second chances, and I'll be damned if they didn't nail it in the 2 hours and 28 minutes that this movie is, which kind of made me a little scared, because ultimately, with everything that was being rumored to be jam-packed into this movie, and from the trailers that we were getting, I was getting kind of scared that even at 2.5 hours, it was going to be a little too short. That's crazy, even with a massive movie like Endgame, there were times where I felt like we rushed a couple of bits, even at the whopping 3 hours. I felt like maybe this one could have maybe benefited from the extra maybe 15 or 20 minutes being at around like 2:45, 2:50, something like that, to kind of give just some added conjecture to some things that happen in this movie. But it still manages to get the point across and complete its purpose and its objective in the 2:28 that it's given. Albeit without its imperfections. I feel like there's some elements about the movie that I think could have been dwelled a little bit more, or maybe were just very mildly underutilized. And it's much more at a subjective level. Like, again, for the objective that the movie's trying to achieve with this whole theme about second chances amongst the multiverse, with Doctor Strange's involvement, it gets the point across in that amount of time. I just personally feel like they could have lingered a little bit more and would have gone the full 240, 245. And it's just ultimately so challenging that I can't go into much more detail, because a lot of those elements that I'm referring to that I feel could have been, again, lingered on a little bit more, or given it some proper credence, maybe as far as like the way that the movie's made, being in a much more CG kind of infused world. I wish that we could have maybe not taken the full CG route on some avenues of the film, whether it be with the visual effects or the choreography or anything like that. As far as technical aspects, like I said, I'm just rambling at this point because I'm just trying to internalize just so much about this movie. But let's just say that this movie strikes a very delicate balance with what you really love about Saturday morning cartoons, and also what the MCU has been able to still kind of get the tone right when it comes to movies like Endgame, where shit can get real, but we're also still making a superhero movie, so it's not like we have to go full-blown Oscar, but at the same time, we're not gonna just deadpan it and go, very weak and just, tug at your strings, whether it be because of, what you love or what you don't like, or what you've, wish could have been done better, and not still deliver a good movie. Because ultimately, a lot of us, people who are, looking forward to No Way Home and getting hyped after every trailer, there's always that little piece of cynicism that goes, yeah, you can add all these things in that we want to see, something of this pops up, something of that pops up, and that's all fine and dandy, but can we sincerely walk away from this movie saying that was a good movie? I can honestly say that it is. It is a good MCU film, and it's a good film overall. And it's not just the people behind the camera who wrote, directed. By the way, shout out to John Watts. Holy shit, I feel like nobody's really talking about John Watts that way. We all talk about the Russos and Jon Favreau and stuff, and don't get me wrong, they do deserve it. But John Watts, man, he delivered us a trilogy ending with something like this, with probably the biggest of expectations, and yet he was still able to craft it all together here with his writers. It's just, come on. A bit of a round of applause for John Watts, as well as everybody in front of the camera as well. Tom Holland, Zendaya, I can't remember his name, but the actor who plays Ned Leeds, and then of course Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, and everybody else involved in the cast nailed it, regardless of what kind of capacity their role was in this third iteration or another. Nobody took the material for granted. Nobody slacked off. everybody gave it their A game. And how many of these types of superhero movies can you say that? But I don't know what I can say. I can say, or at least ask, if you guys can hit the thumbs up button for the opening skit. I worked very hard on it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, hit the thumbs up button. Helps the video out in the algorithm, pushes it out a little bit more, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. At the beginning of this review, I said this is a movie that is just gonna have to experience because it's just that big of a burger. And I'm sitting here in front of you wearing a Spider-Man costume with jacket and sweats to emulate Peter B. Parker from Into the Spider-Verse. So how exactly can you take my word for it without a bias overtone? So that's why I feel like if you've been keeping up with the MCU, you gotta check this movie out. But the only thing I can at least put out into the ether is that it's a good, well-paced, balanced movie that's able to take everything that it's working with and not just schlock it, not just kind of put it in front of the screen and be like, you like this, right? You like this because you're a Spider-Man fan, you've been watching the movies, you've been, loving all this stuff for years. You're going to buy into it no matter what. It's like, no, let's actually work with the people who may not have bought into this in past past movies, whether it be with the MCU or even from the X-Men movies or stuff from different studios, and just make sure that this is still a good movie to have a fun roller coaster ride in the theater. And they were still able to deliver that. They didn't, they still handled it with care, more so than any other films. And because of that, I can say that I will not have a single problem seeing this movie a second or third time, but that's only so that I can finally take off these Spider-Man colored glasses and finally look at some things on a much more objective level. But these are the initial impressions from one Spider-Man fan to another that's getting choked up, while at the same time trying to swallow spit after just, trying to really put everything together, guys. But if you have seen Spider-Man No Way Home, and you were one of the lucky ones to see it on Thursday night, or it is now Friday or Saturday, finally checked out the film, and you want to you gave this video a shot, post in the comments below your first impressions, but also your very clean impressions, no spoilers, because I know that for some time this movie is going to be very difficult for some people to see, especially if maybe movie theaters have still some of the much more strict COVID protocols, or they're a little bit more scattered out as far as location. Who knows? We're going to be a little bit courteous to that, because if social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter aren't already doing that sort of problem, then the best that we can do is at least do our part, keep the comment section clean, and just give me the initial thoughts of what you guys thought of Spider-Man No Way Home. And then probably somewhere here in the suggestion section, you're probably going to find the spoiler discussion. So if you have seen Spider-Man No Way Home, check out that video out once it goes live. And as always, stay humble, guys.